There comes a time in every famous person's life when the thing that made them special starts to fade away. For Art Garfunkel, that time came way too fast. At 81, the beautiful voice that helped so many people feel happy, sad, and alive got weak in a way he never thought could happen. The guy whose high voice used to float perfectly over Paul Simon's songs got scared of quiet, his own quiet. While he tried to figure out who he was without singing, he learned that losing your voice can feel almost like losing yourself. This is the tough trip Art Garfunkel never saw coming, the night everything changed forever. Art Garfunkel always thought his voice was a special gift from God, pure, perfect, and something he could always count on. He started singing when he was just 5 years old, way before anyone knew Simon and Garfunkel, way before Sound of Silence or Bridge Over Troubled Water played everywhere. But in early 2010, during a big reunion tour with Paul Simon that was supposed to be amazing, something terrible happened. He was 72. In the middle of a show in New Orleans, Garfunkel opened his mouth to sing, and nothing came out right. It wasn't a cold, it wasn't because he was tired, it was something much scarier. Suddenly, his middle notes were gone, and the perfect control he always had just disappeared. Doctors said he had vocal cord paresis. That means one of his vocal cords was partly paralyzed. For a singer famous for sounding like an angel, this felt like the worst luck ever. In just days, he canceled the rest of the Simon and Garfunkel tour. In a few weeks, he stopped performing completely. The guy who spent years singing on stages all over the world couldn't even picture holding a microphone anymore. In private, he said something really sad. "I don't know how to be a person who no longer sings." It wasn't only his voice that broke. His confidence fell apart. He felt like he wasn't himself anymore. He started calling himself Walter, a name for the guy he was without music. It wasn't a joke or just to feel better. It showed how lost he really felt. "I became somebody named Walter," he said later, "and I don't know how to be Walter." When most singers his age were enjoying their success, Garfunkel had to face the scary idea that his gift of over 60 years might never come back. And if it didn't, who was he? The breakdown of who he thought he was. In the months after the doctors told him the news, Art Garfunkel fell into deep sadness he had never felt before. Being famous never really defined him like it did for other stars, but singing did. It was part of who he was so deeply that when the voice went away, it felt like someone cut out a big piece of his heart. He said it in a heartbreaking way. "This is breath to me. When you lose it, it's tragic." And it really felt like a tragedy because every time he tried to sing, it was a fight between the old Art and this new stranger. Just thinking about going on stage made him freeze with fear. Even easy sound checks made his legs shake. He would stand there hearing the rough, strange sound from his own throat and think, "Is this real? Will I ever sing again?" It wasn't just losing his job. It was losing who he had been his whole life. He started picturing a future where he only wrote and read books. Things he always loved, but they couldn't fix the quiet pain of losing the one thing he knew he was born to do. Things got even harder when fans started noticing something was really wrong. People who came to hear the perfect voice from songs like All I Know and The Boxer saw him stop, struggle, and mess up. He was afraid of letting them down, afraid of the sad looks in their eyes, afraid of the question he kept hearing. "Are you okay? Are you coming back?" Some days he was scat. Read the answer was no. Garfunkel tried to get used to this new life, but sadness doesn't always come loud and clear. It stays, changes you, and comes back. That's why he called himself Walter, a name that showed how mixed up he felt being silent in a world that only knew him as a singer. It helped him cope, but it was also him admitting the truth. He didn't know who Art Garfunkel was without the thing that made him who he was. But even when he felt the worst, something inside him wouldn't give up completely. The voice was gone, but the want to sing stayed, and that want slowly pushed him onto a hard, unsure road to getting better, a long road back. Art Garfunkel always trusted his voice like it could never break. But after months of quiet fear and doubting himself, he knew that if he wanted any chance to get it back, he had to start over completely. There was no quick fix or magic surgery. He had a slow, lonely, and sometimes embarrassing job ahead, and he was old enough that most singers would just retire. He started super quiet, almost like he was ashamed, singing along with the gentlest singers he knew. James Taylor, the Everly Brothers, Cat Stevens. They became his teachers, his friends, and really saved him. He said it was like gently coaxing the voice to come back. Sometimes he hit a good note, sometimes only a rough sound came out. But even those tiny wins kept him going on the bad days. It wasn't the big singing the world remembered, but it was singing, and that kept him trying. Still, practicing alone wasn't enough. Garfunkel knew he had to face a real microphone, a real room, real people. So he took the next scary step, not a huge stadium, but an empty hall with just his old friend and sound guy Stuart Breed. In that big quiet space, he sang to empty seats, trying to learn again how his voice sounded loud, traveling across a room instead of staying inside him. It was tiring, scary work, and every wrong note hurt like a punch. By his third year getting better, he fied. Now he tried singing for real people again, super small groups, only a few dozen. His first crowds were people from his wife's Buddhist group who knew him as a husband and dad, not a star. Their kind support helped him stay up there long enough and steady enough to finish. Later, he did 7 shows in a tiny New York art gallery that only held 90 people. Every show was more about being brave than sounding perfect. "It's scary to say, 'Listen to me sing when I can't sing,'" he said. "It's so scary." But those shaky shows changed everything, because every time he acted like he was okay, he got a little closer to really being okay again. Pretending slowly brought the real him back. The voice wasn't gone forever. It was waiting if he kept fighting. After 4 long, tough years, Art Garfunkel finally got to a moment he was afraid would never happen. His voice started coming back. Not all at once, not like a big victory, but little by little, like a light slowly getting brighter after being off for years. He just said, "I feel 99% there." But under those calm words was huge relief from a guy who fought for every note and now went back to big shows knowing singing in a whole new way. He made a new kind of show, less about perfect notes, more about talking to people, telling stories, and sharing the long, hard road that got him back on stage. He mixed old Simon and Garfunkel songs, his own solo songs, and a question time where people asked about life, losing his voice, and of course the big question that never stopped. Will Simon and Garfunkel get back together? Instead of dodging it, he answered honestly and kindly, "It takes 2 to tango. Ask him first." He didn't sound mad or mean. It was just the truth of a friendship too messy to fix just because fans wanted it. It didn't help that Paul Simon already said clearly, in 2012, he said he'd rather not go back to the past. Later, he was even more direct. "We don't get along. It's not fun." That hurt fans a lot. For Garfunkel, it was just another fact. But when he talked about their last show together, his voice got soft. He remembered the Old Friends tour with the Everly Brothers, how they started with the line, Old friends sat on their park bench like bookends." He remembered how simple it was, 1 guitar, 2 voices starting together. Who does that in an arena? Those memories showed him that even hard friendships can have real magic, and that magic was still true no matter what. Nothing could erase it, no matter how broken things got between them. But now Garfunkel went on stage alone. No Paul Simon next to him, no harmonies together, just a man and his almost fixed voice. And he knew he could never take even 1 note for granted again. Because when a gift you had your whole life goes away and comes back, even not perfect, it feels holy. While the world kept guessing about reunions or retirement and what his almost lost voice meant, Art Garfunkel found new purpose that had nothing to do with Paul Simon or their old fame. He started caring more about something super personal, watching his son, Art Garfunkel Jr., start his own music journey. For the dad, this was more than just being proud. It felt weird and beautiful seeing a younger guy with his name, his face, and some of his singing feeling step into the same world that made him famous and almost broke him. Art Jr. grew up in a house full of songs, harmony, and stories from the best folk rock days. Music was always around before he ever thought of singing himself. He got some of his dad's sound, but he added new modern style that made it his own. Unlike a lot of kids of famous singers who fight to be different, Art Jr. loved carrying his dad's name. It didn't push him down, it lifted him up. He sang in German pop groups, worked on classical pop mixes, and built fans who liked him for himself, not just his dad. It wasn't the huge fame his dad had, but it was real and growing, and both of them knew that meant it would last. For the dad, watching this made him feel steady. It showed him music didn't stop with his injury, or Simon and Garfunkel breaking up, or getting old. It kept going through a younger voice, a new generation, someone who saw his dad at his best and his worst. And maybe that's why he sang differently later. He didn't try to be perfect like when he was young. He brought something deeper and better. Real-life experience, being humble, and knowing a voice can break, disappear, and still come back. As Art Jr. made his own way, the dad thought about the crazy path of his own life. Big wins, big falls, and comebacks. Standing at the microphone in his 80s, he knew even if he never sounded as perfect as when he was young, he still had something special to give. Something only getting older can give. The real truth of a full life. By the time Art Garfunkel got to his 80s, he accepted something that used to scare him bad. He would never sing exactly like he did in his 20s and 30s again, but after everything, that didn't crush him anymore. It made him feel real. He had faced the silence, the paralysis, the fear that he wasn't himself anymore. He built himself back not just with voice exercises, but with pure courage. Walking to microphones not knowing what sound would come out. That openness became part of his singing. He often said singing after 2010 felt like being on stage with no safety net. He talked about the mix of fear and excitement that got him through those first comeback shows. He never hid that he wasn't sure. "It is brave, he said. "You ask people to listen, but you don't know if you can do it. That's bravery without a net." And for fans, that realness made his later shows not weaker, but deeper, closer, and more powerful. Even now, he talks about his life in a gentle way that surprises people. On CBS this morning, he remembered running his fingers on a fence as a little boy and loving the sound. He talked about that sweet little kid, young Artie Garfunkel, and said he misses him. Getting older didn't make him hard. It made him softer and kinder. He also found peace in things he never thought would matter as much as music. Being married, being a dad, simple daily stuff. But every singer's life changes, and even the best voices have to let time win a little. What mattered was he kept going. Even at 81, he still walks on stage, still tells his stories, still turns his life into something to share, and he never forgets how lucky he is. "You feel like you have a rabbit's foot in your pocket," he said. "I've been a thoroughly lucky duck to survive the rise, the fall, the silence, and the return." That was the surprising story of a man whose voice once held millions of dreams, and who now carries the wisdom of almost losing it all. Art Garfunkel's story shows how easily a gift can break, and how strong you have to be to get it back. After everything he went through, what do you think was his most amazing comeback moment? Tell us in the comments. And don't forget to like and subscribe for more stories like this.